I don't know if you knew this about me, but I am an old school hip hop junkie. A lot of the rap that came out in the 80s and 90s, I really like. I grew up with that stuff and I still listen to a lot of it today. Tupac was one of my favorite artists. There was a lot of controversial stuff that surrounded a lot of his lyrics and stuff like that. But for the most part, man, he made some amazing music and did some great things for hip hop itself. Anyway, there's an SCP about him. I thought that was kind of funny. I saw it on the Vulgans channel a little while back and I never reacted to it, but there's an animation about it today. It's from SCP Exposed. We're going to react to it today, guys. Make sure to subscribe to SCP Exposed and let's get into this reaction.
Rebecca switched off her laptop and went to look out the window. She sighed. She had planned to go to the beach that afternoon, but it didn't look like the rain was going to stop anytime soon. She took out her CD collection and searched through it. On a miserable day like this, there was only one thing that would cheer her up. She found her favorite. It was by the artist Tupac Shakur. She put the CD in the player and picked up her headphones. She leaned back in the chair and listened as the familiar words played in her ears. She knew the songs like the back of her hand. As each track played, she began to relax and forgot about the rain. Suddenly, she sat up in shock. It should have been her favorite song playing next. But instead, she heard the voice of Tupac Shakur. It seemed like he was speaking directly to her. If you want to know the truth about Princess Diana's death, look no further. These are the facts. You will find out who her killer is by the end of this track. Welcome back to SCP Exposed. Today we bring you Thaumiel class subject SCP-2137. But before I go on, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on any more SCP stories. SCP-2137 is a single compact disc copy of Me Against the World, a hip-hop album by the artist Tupac Shakur, released in 1995. Physical examination as well as laser testing indicates that the CD was one of the initial releases, manufactured and distributed in 1995. Conventional testing of the disc itself reveals identical results to a non-anomalous copy of the album. The case and liner notes have been determined to have no anomalous qualities, and the physical makeup and encoding of the disc appear completely normal. However, upon playing track 7, normally Heaven in the Game, the listener will encounter an instance of SCP-2137-1. The anomaly takes the form of spontaneously generated, professionally produced songs featuring Tupac Shakur in various styles within the hip-hop genre. Though each instance of SCP-2137-1 generated is unique, they share certain commonalities in terms of subject matter. The central focus of the song invariably addresses a crime, almost always a murder or series of murders, and then gives necessary anecdotal evidence or information to correctly identify and prosecute the killer, even going so far as to specify prosecutors or recommended vigilante justice. Though generation of SCP-2137-1 has been determined to have a definite causal nature, the manner in which the instances are copied onto the disk has yet to be ascertained. When not being used, the disk is to be kept within a typical electronic 10-digit metal safe in the safe wing of Site-23. Initially, all digital and wireless broadcast media had to be kept at least 100 meters away from it. However, it was later determined that due to its anomalous effect having no ranged limit, digital, wireless, and broadcast media may be used, but should be monitored closely for any appearance of SCP-2137-1 or 2. Once a week, 2137 is to be cleaned and all tracks are to be played in succession, with special attention paid to the instance of 2137-1 that replaces track 7. The names, situations, and anecdotes presented in that instance must then be reported to the 2137 Special Committee, otherwise known as PAC-Watch. On the rare occasion that non-Foundation organizations cannot address the situation presented in an instance of SCP-2137-1, O5-9 has given authorization to activate MTF-339, the Suge Knights, to take any and all measures necessary to reach a resolution to the problem. Operational success will be indicated by a new instance of 2137-1. Personnel who wish to examine or attempt to interact with the disk must ask Dr. Kivowitz for authorization beforehand, which will then pen O5 clearance. The primary voice on the songs, from herein identified as SCP-2137-2, matches cleanly through advanced audio analysis to that of the real Tupac Shakur, who died in 1996, over a year before the recovery of the disc. However, occasionally, on crimes of a particularly complicated or brutal nature, he will be joined by other performers, either guest rapping or singing the chorus or bridge. This has included many of Tupac's contemporaries such as Snoop Doggy Dogg or No Doubt, as well as artists from the 2000s including Chris Brown, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, and Eminem, usually at the height of their popularity. On a few notable occasions involving long unsolved crimes by still active criminals, there have been guests of a more blatantly anachronistic nature, standouts among whom include Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, and the Beatles. Heavily anachronistic guests tend to take the role of primary artist, the song performed in their style, with SCP-2137-2 joining as a rap guest. When contacted, none of these artists had any recollection of recording for or information regarding SCP-2137. The crimes themselves share that they are unsolved or, in some cases, have escaped detection entirely. The majority of instances of SCP-2137-1 address crimes of private citizens, such as serial killers, spree murders, or career criminals, though occasionally the songs will address larger groups, such as Hamas, ISIS, the IRA, and even in 2 separate instances, the Chaos Insurgency and the Church of the Broken God. The following is a prototypical example of SCP-2137-1. Jeff Rieger out there and still stalking the night. Killed his brother and 5 strangers with the same damn knife. Now it's not my place to tell you what to do, but I know what I would do if I were you. He hid the blade in an old barn off the North 111. He already killed 6, don't make it 7. When the crimes have been addressed and the guilty parties brought to light, either by the legal system or otherwise, SCP-2137-1 is immediately replaced by a new instance. However, the track is easily recorded through conventional means. Recorded versions are not subject to change or replacement, and the original can be replayed from the CD endlessly before the killer is found, with no little variation. There are currently nearly 1,000 instances of SCP-2137-1 on record. The disc was recovered in the home of Avon Lincoln, arrested for the vigilante slaying of Michael Ferris, who was later revealed to have been the OJ Strangler, responsible for 6 murders over the summer of 1996. Avon's insistence that Tupac Shakur spoke to him from beyond the grave and told him he had to take justice into his own hands because Ferris' position as district attorney would prevent a fair trial, drew the attention of Foundation agents after the song in question was produced as evidence in court. Amnestics were administered to all involved, and Lincoln was released back into the general population. Initially, researchers experimented with anonymously tipping off local police departments through Foundation plans, which led to the resolution of numerous cold cases, including the recovery of 3 SCP subjects, though no direct link has been established other than the murders involved. However, after several years, this use of the SCP was deemed impractical. Repeatedly addressing the crimes discussed in 2137's music was, in practice, allowing the SCP to dictate the circumstances of its containment, and under the wrong circumstances, open the Foundation to potential exposure through continuous interaction with law enforcement at all levels across multiple governments. In response to this, 05-9 ceased addressing the crimes. After 2 months passed, the disk's behavior radically changed, when, for the first time, an instance of SCP-2137-1 was produced that revealed SCP-2137-2 had an awareness of its containment with lines such as, "You say you're about security, but you ain't the good guys," and "Locked in a drawer, feeling like you all trying to screw me. You're stepping all up on my destiny. You might not believe I'm the real Pac, but I'm not just a CD." The decision was made to halt testing entirely rather than acquiesce. After 1 week passed, an instance of SCP-2137-1 appeared spontaneously on the YouTube channel of a Los Angeles-based hip-hop station, and in the lone hour before it was taken down, it had accrued a huge amount of views. In a massive sweeping operation involving the activation of multiple task forces across many continents, all trace of the video was erased, and all of its viewers were administered Class A amnestics. Midway through this operation, an entire album titled XK Scenario was released to the iTunes account of Beyonce Knowles. Each song featured SCP-2137-2, as well as a variety of guest artists, and focused on a different Keter-class SCP currently in captivity. In the XK scenario incident, the image displayed on the video was a still photograph, apparently authentic, though by its nature, highly anomalous. The photograph is of Shakur, estimated to be in his early 40s, wearing the garb of Foundation D-Class personnel, with his middle fingers raised. The accompanying song, titled, focused on an SCP subject, revealing its actual location and means by which it could be broken free of current containment procedures, and identified several members of the O5 Council by their first names as it described the function and nature of the Foundation. Though SCP tracking bots were able to bring XK scenario down after only a few downloads, complete digital eradication of the individual files has proven difficult. Though no loss of life or property was incurred, the sheer scale of the danger posed by this containment breach prompted a Foundation-wide state of high alert. This prompted an ongoing upgrade to all automatic SCP firewalls and engendered the reclassification of SCP-2137 from Euclid to Keter. The breach sparked heated debate as to how to proceed with the containment of and conceptual understanding regarding the disk, which came to an end upon the appearance of a new instance of SCP-2137-1. This instance was produced spontaneously through the mouth of an SCP subject, which appeared to fall into a trance state during the incident, with the lyrics, in totality, repeatedly written 117,000 times all over the interior of its containment chamber. The instance began with the lyrics, "Trying not to play the CD, you're starting a war. You don't really want to see me in flesh. I would hesitate to put you little nerds to rest." And ended with, "Dressed in black like you can't be seen. I fight alone, I don't need no team. So do your job cause I'm giving you tips, and put that whole CD in the mix, biatch." The decision was made to resume the former method of testing, involving the embedded informants used to relay the disk's evidence and information, while continuing to study the method by which it transmits its broadcasts, in an effort to truly contain it completely. SCP-2137-2 resumed its previous behavioral pattern, SCP-2137-1's focusing on crimes until their killers are located by conventional law enforcement, with the exception of one final track. At this time, its last recorded direct interaction with the Foundation. "I guess it took time for it to sink in. I'm just glad you understood what I was thinking. I see it's hard to get some sleep at night. You got a head full of grays and your skin ain't tight. It's black and white, so don't get caught up in the deep thoughts. You got my music on the side with a greater force." Investigation into any kind of link or pattern between the crimes the disk solves is ongoing, as is interest to why it doesn't use its agency to pursue the criminals in question rather than working through proxies. An email was sent to O5 Council by Dr. Gwen Pristine, the director of Site-515, in which she proposed the disk be redesignated to Thaumiel class object. She reasoned that in the nearly 3 decades since its containment, the Foundation's collaboration with the disk has led to the recovery of dozens of SCPs. She wrote, "A silent, undocumented understanding has grown among us. The SCP does not simply catch murderers. It directly and aggressively searches out anything that maliciously takes a human life." She went on to say, "A few young researchers have diligently continued a hunt for meaning, for greater truth behind SCP-2137-1. An unexpected advance in this area is behind the urgency in my message to you today." It had long been understood that the life of the actual Tupac Shakur held little information or relevance towards the mystery of SCP-2137's existence. This has potentially changed. A researcher named Mariha Kozlovic had recently come across an interview held with Tupac Shakur 2 years before his death. The following are Tupac's words. "People ask me where I get my inspiration from. They say, 'How do you go so hard? Put in that much work?' But what they don't understand is, this is me taking a break. This is me on vacation. I can't be chasing the king all the time. I feel like I've been doing that forever to protect you, all of you. You don't see that when I die, I'll live on. My death is my destiny, and then I become something else, what I was before. The voice will still shout, and it'll shout justice in poetry and art and music. I got you, humanity. When I eventually go toe-to-toe and brawl with this fool, he's gonna gather up his little red dress and go home crying, and he knows it. Evil knows its days are numbered, so the king's still running. The chase isn't over. Prepare, prepare, prepare." At the time of his murder in 1996, Shakur was 25 years old. What did you think of that SCP case?
Incredible, man. incredible. This so well written. I can't even begin to think. Like, there was so much controversy surrounded by Tupac, you know, but there was some good too. He did a lot for the black communities. He did a lot for hip hop, and he spoke out a lot about a lot of injustices. So even though there was a bunch of bad, there was also good, and I love the fact that they highlighted his messages that he said like he'd never die. You know, that's really, really cool, guys. This was great. Make sure to check out SCP Exposed. Link's gonna be in the description, as well as a couple other reaction videos that I think you'll love. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Uljan signing off. We'll see you next time. Break it down.